return this bill to the House. I also want to thank all our colleagues that contributed when the bill was thrown out the first time. I want to urge all of you to please look at this new bill because it has been re-engineered to suit everyone and to ensure that all our girls, our women, the elderly, and the very weak are taken care of by the laws of the land. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, permit me to lead the debate again. We've been supported this time by 22 others on the Gender and Equal Opportunities Bill, which seeks to give effect to the provisions of Chapter 2 and 4 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999 as amended, dealing with the fundamental objectives and directive principles of state policy and the fundamental human rights, including the right to life, right to dignity of human person, right to personal liberty, right to fair hearing, and right to freedom from discrimination, etc., and the International Covenant on Human Rights, which affirm the principle of non-discrimination and proclaims that all humans are born free and equal in dignity and rights, and that everyone is entitled to all the rights set out without distinction of any kind, including distinction based on sex. The domestication of certain provisions of the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against Women and the Protocol to the African Charter on the Rights of Women in Africa. The bill was read for the first time in this chamber on Tuesday, the 15th of June 2016. Mr. President, my highly respected colleagues, recall that this bill was exhaustively debated last session and was negative as a result of certain reasons that were raised in the course of the debate, which have been aptly resolved in this new bill. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, Section 4 of the bill Section 4 of the bill deals with prohibition of discrimination and provides that no person, organ, or agency of government, public or private institution, commercial or corporate body, community or other entity, or any representative of such organ or agency of government, public or private institution, commercial or corporate body, community or other entity shall either through words spoken, acts, inactions, omissions, laws, regulations, administrative procedures, policy, guidelines, rules, customs, or practices discriminate against any person on the ground of gender, age, or disability. The proposed law, therefore, seeks to promote equality, development, and advancement of all persons in Nigeria. Section 5 of the bill accordingly provides that every person, body, institution, community, authority, or private enterprise, whether public organ or body, public institution, individuals, communities, or authority and private enterprise in Nigeria, shall take all appropriate measures, including regulatory policy, fiscal and administrative measures, to ensure the full development and advancement of all persons, especially young women and children, for the purpose of guaranteeing to them the exercise and enjoyment of human rights and fundamental freedoms on the basis of non-discrimination and equality of all persons. Mr. President, to guarantee effectiveness and practicability of these provisions, the bill further makes provision for the adoption of temporary special measures to eliminate discrimination and ensure equal opportunities for majority of Nigerians. These special measures cover political and public sphere in offices, positions or appointments, employment opportunities, credit or other economic sphere in public or private that a minimum of 35% be reserved for women. In the case of educational placement and school enrollment, including award of scholarships, bursaries, or such allocations that parity is ensured for boys and girls, men and women. And in the case of primary school enrollment, mechanisms should be put in place to ensure parity in enrollment and retention of boys and girls. Mr. President, it is also important to note that this law also proposes some modifications to some of our socio-political, cultural practices that promote discrimination and gender-based inequality. It therefore states that it shall be the responsibility of all public or private institutions and all entities in Nigeria to modify the social and cultural patterns of conduct of men and women with a view to achieving the elimination of gender stereotyping, prejudices, and customary and all other practices which are based on the idea of inferiority or superiority of either of the sexes or the roles for men and women. The bill further provides that all appropriate measures be taken to eliminate discrimination against women in political and public life, eliminate discrimination against women in education, eliminate discrimination against women in employment, eliminate in occupation or any profession, prevent discrimination against women on the grounds of marriage, marital status, or maternity, eliminate discrimination against any person on any ground whatsoever in the field of healthcare, and more importantly, ensure that all women who are pregnant and within 2 years of delivery and all children under the age of 12 are given free and quality health care services, including provision of all necessary medical, surgical, diagnostic, and pharmacological supplies. Mr. President, this bill also prohibits all forms of violence against women in private and public places. All forms of violence against women are prohibited, whether the violence takes place in private, family, or public sphere, including unwanted or forced sex, or traditional, religious, or cultural practices harmful to health, well-being, integrity of the woman. All forms of violence against the elderly woman, including sexual abuse and discrimination based on age, are prohibited. All forms of violence against women with disability, including sexual abuse and discrimination based on disability, are prohibited. Every educational school or training authority shall promote peace education through curricular and social communication in order to eradicate elements in traditional and cultural beliefs, practices, and stereotypes which legitimize and exacerbate the discrimination against women, persistence and tolerance of violence against women. All forms of trafficking in women and children, abuse and exploitation of women and children in any manner or way, and medical experiments on women without their informed consent or on their children without the informed consent of their parents or legal guardian are prohibited. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, as we are all aware, we as a nation are grappling with the worst economic crisis to befall the country in more than 2 decades. Unfortunately, and also sadly, women and children are the main groups that bear the full brunt or effect of this economic downturn. A myriad of issues exist with their access to capital and lack of opportunities. The urgent need now arises to put in place policies and mechanisms that will address these issues to ensure that women are empowered to take their place in society and continue to more actively contribute to the nation's development. For women to be properly empowered in Nigeria, economic processes and measures need to be put in place to ensure that poverty among women is reduced. This will reduce their vulnerability and dependency in all spheres of life. while I acknowledge that the President recently announced that the government will establish the National Women's Empowerment Fund with 1.6 billion in microfinance loans to women across the nation to assist in rehabilitating the economies of the rural communities, particularly those impacted by the insurgency and conflict, I dare say this is not enough, as it is merely a policy pronouncement or decision by government and is not backed by law, therefore discretionary and not mandatory. The need for legal backing is fundamental because the above enunciated policy and others like it before now do not have established systems and structures for their sustainability. Hence the need for the legal framework, which is what this bill seeks to do. Part B of the bill provides for the commission and jurisdiction for the implementation of the law. When passed, the National Human Rights Commission is vested with the powers to enforce and implement the provision. The High Court of the Federal Capital Territory is vested with the original jurisdiction to look into applications arising from any breach of the provisions of this bill. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I therefore seek your support and urge that all my colleagues support this second reading, because this is an all-important bill to remove all forms of discrimination against women. And I also want to use this opportunity, Mr. President, to thank all the male senators who contributed the last time, and to tell them, to appeal to them to support it this time, because I know that most of them were also not comfortable when they got home because their wives were all up in arms. But I am assuring you that this time, this is a more subtle bill, and when it's committed to the committee, everyone will have the opportunity of having a say. Thank you very much.